The City of Lawrence Board of Zoning Appeals is now called to order. I'm going to do a roll call vote. If each member could just say here when I call your name. Becky Lytle
has joined the conference.
Here.
Mark Sanders.
Here.
Desmond Woods.
Here.
Courtney Kuna.
Here.
Stephen Hall.
Here.
And then Tom, are you there? Tom Crouch? Okay, we've got one member missing tonight, Tom Crouch. If he joins the meeting, we'll add him into the minutes. Our alternate, Mark Sanders, will be voting in his place if he does not show up. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to Becky Lytle, the president of the board.
Okay. I'll need approval of the minutes for April 21st, 2020.
So moved.
Please state your name.
Stephen Hall.
Thank you, Stephen.
I need a second.
Second, Mark Sanders.
And by roll call vote for passage of the approval of the minutes from April 21st.
Hey, Renee, this is Tom.
Has joined the conference.
Hi, Tom. We're already in the meeting. I appreciate you coming in. I'll add you to the roll call.
Okay, thank you.
We're doing a approval of the minutes. It's been motioned by Stephen Hall, seconded by Mark Sanders. I'm doing a roll call vote. Becky Lytle,
Yes.
Mark Sanders,
Yes.
Desmond Woods,
Yes.
Courtney Kuna,
Yes.
Stephen Hall,
Yes.
Tom Crouch.
Yes,
Thank you.
Are there any special requests tonight, continuance, withdrawals, or waivers? With there not being any, we have no old business. We will go to new business. For a variance of development standard of 744-404A. .1.a, 744-504 and 744-505 of A for the front yard and parking lot frontage landscaping requirements along the Cellar Street frontage, as well as the location of the proposed drive aisles limits. Okay.
Petitioner, go ahead and present your case, please.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. If not, just please let me know. But my name is John Scheidler. I'm with Wolpert. We're the civil engineer and consultant on working with Bank of America on this project and requesting this variance this evening. The site is located at 7606 Pendleton Pike at the northeast corner of Pendleton Pike and Cellar Street. The site is zoned C5. The existing site is the location of the former Papa's Pancake House restaurant, which has recently closed. The proposed development is a 3,700 square feet Bank of America retail banking center. It's shown on the site plan provided. The building will be constructed in the same location as the existing restaurant building and utilize the same access points off of both Cellar Street and Pendleton Pike. Also in the application is a building elevations from the architect that were provided recently for reference. There's three pages of elevations, and on the fourth page is a color rendering of what the proposed building will look like on the site, a depiction of that. A drive-through lane is proposed to be located on the east side of the building, and a two-way drive lane is proposed along the west side of the building on the site to allow circulation. The property is less than half an acre and is only approximately 87 feet in width. Even with a narrow footprint that we have for the proposed bank building at 52 feet wide, there's not enough width for the drive lanes and required front yard along the Cellar Street frontage. Therefore, the drive lane along the west side encroaches into the Sellers Street right-of-way by approximately 6 feet. This condition requires a variance from the City of Indianapolis zoning ordinance for a few items. One, the location of the drive lane being in the right-of-way, for not meeting the front yard setback requirements, and for not meeting the front yard landscape requirements. This condition is equal to the limits of the existing drive lane pavement on the site for the restaurant that's currently on the site today. And this is shown in several photographs that were provided in the staff report. If you refer to photographs 1 through 3, 5, and 6, they all show the existing conditions and the limits of the pavement along Sellers Street. The proposed edge of pavement and the new curb line for the bank project match these existing limits for both the edge of pavement and the curb line. So we're not encroaching any further than what is present today. In addition, landscaping will be added between the edge of the pavement and Sellers Street. The landscape plan is also provided in the application for reference. We do acknowledge that encroaching into the right-of-way affects potential future expansion of the road and/or the right-of-way. However, according to the 2019 thoroughfare plan for Indianapolis and Marion County, Sellers Street is classified as a local street, which recommends a 50-foot right-of-way for future needs. The existing Sellers Street right-of-way is 50 feet and meets this requirement. In addition, Sellers Street is just 1,100 feet long before it dead ends to the north at the railroad corridor. So
what's
it
going to
serves
be
a
on Sellers
fixed,
Street?
limited
Anything
number of
on that
properties
side
and
of
is
the
not
bank?
likely to require significant future expansion. With the closing of the Papa's restaurant, this site, which is located on a prominent corner on Pendleton Pike, just east of 465 and across the street from the Menard store, the site will benefit greatly from redevelopment. It will also aid in other redevelopment in the vicinity. Many commercial and retail uses will face the same limitations as this
That's what the
proposed
building is
development
now.
does, given the 87-foot wide parcel that is located here, when other developers are looking to redevelop the site. So
What's going on
we
behind
look
it?
forward to your approval of this variance this evening, and that will allow this project to move forward. And I'd be happy to answer any questions in the meantime.
Does the board have any questions for the petitioner?
This is Tom. I have one. Did you meet with the city of Lawrence, with DPW or anybody regarding Sellers Street?
I spoke with Renee about this. I know the representatives of the seller had spoken with the city of Lawrence as well. I'm not sure who specifically they spoke with, but before this plan was put together, they spoke with the city.
Well, I know a couple of months ago, we had on this BZA a variance regarding a new headquarters building to your west. And I know that the dream of the city of Lawrence has always been to make the industrial park behind you modern and thriving and truck friendly, which means modernize all of the streets, particularly Record Street and Sellers Street. What would happen if they did widen Sellers to your ingress and egress?
That's a good question.
Well, I guess it's hard to say without specifically knowing, which way or by how much it would widen. I guess given the current situation, There's very limited room for Cellar Street to be expanded east towards our site. There appears to be more room on the west side of the site, but I know there is a left turn lane already on Cellar Street for turning onto Pendleton Pike.
But, too, Tom, we've got that Wendy's going next door to it, too. You said the bank is going where Papa's is right now. You're saying, let me see if I'm understanding you correctly. You're using the same, is your building going out further than where it is right now?
Yes, I believe the bank building would be somewhat closer to Pendleton Pike than the restaurant building is, yes.
But towards Cellar Street, will it still have the same gap?
The building itself is closer to Cellar Street, so the restaurant has the same two-way drive aisle that we are proposing, but they also have angled parking that faces that west side of the building. We don't have that parking, but the extent of our drive lane and our pavement are equal to what is at the restaurant today.
I'm going to explain a little bit here. Looks like they're going to move the building forward a little bit from where Papa's is. And the building footprint won't be as wide as what Papa's currently is, but longer, so that they can put the drive-through lane along the eastern side of the property.
Okay.
So if you,
But that side over there will still,
yeah, they still got 2 lanes on the west side of the building that will come around for parking and for the drive-through
and the parking will be in front?
and in back. So they've got a handicap and 2 parking spots.
My
up front.
concern is with, well, Wendy's going in, the bank going in, the big industrial building going in, the traffic there, and if they do widen it, how that will affect the bank.
So Lawrence currently has a 50-foot, it looks to be almost 60-foot right-of-way when I measure it on our GIS. And that right-of-way extends to the west into the Freegee property. If you see this line here. And when I measure that, it looks like we've got. So if the city would, it doesn't look like we would need any additional right-of-way, because their property literally is the right-of-way line, and maybe the curb line looks to be a little bit over the right-of-way line for the existing Papa's.
Okay.
Did I explain that right,
Yeah,
John?
yes, and the existing Cellar Street has 3 lanes, 1 in each direction, plus the left turn lane I mentioned that is for left turns on the Pendleton Pike. So the lanes
So
currently
this
total
purple line is
about
the
36
right-of-way.
feet.
They've
with
extended
3
just a
12-foot
little
lanes.
bit beyond that.
So with the
This is
right-of-way
right-of-way
being
6
for
foot.
these.
By 6
50
foot?
to closer to 60 feet
No,
currently, then
measure
there would
that.
be room for potentially 1 additional lane to be added in on the west side of Sellers, across the street from the bank.
Okay, I can't talk right.
I've got you muted.
This is Steve. I'm looking at photograph 5, the frontage along Southern Street looking toward Pendleton Pike. Is that currently a narrow sidewalk that runs along the west side of that? Or the east side of the street?
It appears to be a sidewalk, but it's at a very sharp angle, so it almost seems more of a paved slope. I mean, it's not it's steep enough. It's definitely not ADA accessible, but it's also not really, it seems walkable from a sidewalk standpoint, but it's more of just pavement to fill the gap between the lower curb line of Sellers Street and the higher
It
curb
wasn't
line
6 feet, right?
of the current site. And that's where we're proposing to.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think I was just going to mention what you were asking. Yeah, our plan is to fill that in with some minor landscaping.
Yeah, that's where I was going, thank you.
So there'll be landscaping
Here.
here? Okay. Is there any landscaping in front?
John, did your plan include any landscaping in the front?
Yes. I don't know if anyone has the landscape plan handy with
There
the
it is.
information that was sent
Okay.
out, but it was included. There's basically the green space between the parking lot and Pendleton Pike has several shrubs and 4 trees in it.
Okay. I'm here with Renee. I'm here at the city building, so Renee's showing me the info.
It's on the site plan in the Larry staff report on page 7 for our other members who are wanting to look at it.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions at this time? Okay, is there any remonstrators for or against this petition? We'll hear from Larry.
Okay, thank you. This is Larry Callaway from the city of Indianapolis. When our staff looked at this, our concern was the size of the lot and the degree of development occurring on the lot. Currently, the existing building has about 3,000 square feet, a little more than 3,000 square feet. The proposed building would be 3,700 square feet approximately. So it's basically 20% larger than the building that's on there now. And as you can see in the pictures, already fully developed. And so putting an even larger building on there and then adding a drive-through as well, which it doesn't have, it makes it clear, at least to us, that this is overdevelopment of the site when the existing site couldn't fully handle the development that was already there because it's paved from lot line to lot line and into the right-of-way. And so when we looked at all that, we just felt we could not support it. And then when you consider the drive-through, which is kind of there, well, normally in this district, it's zone C5, you would also be required to have landscaped yards on the sides and rear as well. And they're not necessarily doing that either, and that's because there is sort of language in the ordinance that would allow that not to occur. So you're not even getting the 10 feet on the east side as well, because of some exceptions in the ordinance. And so, and then on top of that, we're going into the right of way with the drive lanes, and then, as was pointed out, there's pavement that appears, that sort of looks like it was intended to sort of maybe be a sidewalk, but really it kind of isn't, because it's almost impossible to walk on it. Because of the slope. I think the next to last picture, photograph 6, you can see to the north of the drive, it's a little more level, but it's not ADA accessible. And then south of the drive on Sellers, it has that severe slope. it's wide enough to walk on, but the slope is so steep that you wouldn't walk on it. And of course, I've been out to the site several times for various reasons, and yeah, you end up walking on the asphalt pavement
Will that be
because
all
it's just
level?
not walkable. But the other thing to be aware of is that in tearing down this existing building and building a new building, they would have to provide for proper sidewalks on this site. And so even with the landscaping, so proposing sort of the landscaping in the right-of-way doesn't work either without making changes sort of to the configuration of the road to provide for the sidewalk, where you might have to shift the lanes over slightly to fit the sidewalk in there. And if you want to do both, provide sidewalk and provide landscaping.
Sidewalk planned.
No.
And then, of course, because you're going into the right-of-way, you would need an encroachment license from the city of Lawrence to be able to keep that 5-lane and landscaping in the right-of-way, which, of course, being a license, could be revoked if needed additional right-of-way or needed to make changes to the road. There is additional right-of-way on the west side of the road. It appears to be somewhere between 12 and 15 feet of unimproved right-of-way. So there's room for the road to shift, but that obviously gets into a lot more expense than doing that. And so when we look at all those sort of issues of the building being larger or a drive-through being added that isn't on the existing site, a small strip of landscaping being proposed in the right-of-way, part of the drive in the right-of-way, still having the need to provide for proper ADA sidewalks in the right-of-way. We just felt like we couldn't and shouldn't support this request. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does the board have any questions for Larry?
Larry, excuse me, go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Steve, and I don't think this is actually a question for Larry, but I wanted to talk again briefly about the amount of parking spaces. I'm looking at the landscape plan, and in the front of the building, it appears there's 1 handicap and 2 parking spaces. And then in the rear of the building, I can't really tell if it's 2 or 4 parking spaces. Is that correct?
There's actually 11 in the back. But yeah, you've got 2 in the front, a handicap in the front, 4 up against the building, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 along the rear property line to the north.
So the majority of the parking would be at the rear of the building, and the people would have to walk up through the driveway to access the building if those free parking spaces in the front are full.
But why do we have a handicap?
And
It has to go all the way around.
There is a rear entrance to the bank, so they would not have to walk around to the front.
my question, though, in addition to that is, so if I come in off of Sellers Street and I think I'm going to park in the front and I come around and those spaces are occupied, do I have to turn around and go back the way I came to get back to the rear of the building?
Yes. If the drive-through lane was open, you could potentially take that, or you could pull back out onto Dillon Pike and turn right on Sellers and re-enter fairly easily again. But so there's some options.
Okay.
Any other questions for Larry?
Thank you.
Yes, this is Tom. Did you get involved in the landscape plan, Larry?
You mean in terms of making suggestions or anything?
Yeah, right.
No, not really. This is just what they proposed. We had told them before they filed the variance that we wouldn't support this request. And it's basically the same request we saw before.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We'll hear from the city of Lawrence.
The city of Lawrence has no position on this petition.
Petitioner, you can, you have another 5-minute rebuttal if you want, before we vote.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I would just reiterate that, well, a couple of things. We do understand all the points made. We acknowledge some of the drawbacks mentioned. We're aware of the challenges and what we are not meeting with this plan. But again, as I mentioned before, with the size and shape of this lot, it is going to be a challenge to meet the setbacks that we're asking the variance from for most commercial developments similar to this. So we feel like this is an opportunity to have a workable development go in this location and redevelop shortly after the restaurant has closed down. And if it weren't, the variances weren't granted and the project would not work, then like I mentioned that other commercial developments are going to have very similar issues, and we're optimistic that with the redevelopment that is going on in the area and encouraged that this project would be able to go forward.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions before voting?
This is Tom again. I'm not familiar with any other Bank of America centers. How many centers do you have in India? Have I just not noticed you?
I do not have a count off the top of my head. I know around the area there's been a number of them opened in the last year or two. There's just two that I'm familiar with. There's one in Greenwood just opened and one in Fishers just opened last year. But I don't have unfortunately I don't have a count or anything.
Okay, no, I guess there's a limited number. We should be honored that the Bank of America wants to be in our city. You said it's going to be a retail center. When I looked at only one drive-in lane, I thought maybe it'd be only commercial business, but it is a typical retail bank.
Yeah, and the drive-through is for an ATM. There's not a actual teller window at this location.
Oh, okay.
That's standard for a lot of the new Bank of Americas and frankly a lot of the banks that they don't have in-person tellers any longer.
So if that's the case, why don't you put the ATM either in the front or the back? And then
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I said, if that's the case, if it's just going to be an ATM, why don't you put it somewhere either in the front of the building or the back of the building, be able to meet the setbacks from cellar, right?
From the side,
From the side.
the other side, the east side.
Well, for one, the idea of the ATM is to allow for vehicle access, so it's not just walking up to it, and no matter where we put it, we would have to have a drive-through lane and stacking provided, and this was the most efficient way to fit it on the site. It doesn't impact parking and other things.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions for the petitioner before we vote? Okay, Renee,
Okay, we're going to do a roll
wait,
call vote.
I need to,
I was going to read it.
okay, go ahead.
We're going to do a roll call vote on petition 20 LSV 06 for 7606 Pendleton Pike, variance of development standards of 744-404A1A, 744-504, 744-505A for the front yard and parking lot frontage landscaping requirements along the Cellar Street frontage, as well as the location of the proposed drive aisle limits. When I call your name, please answer with A or nay.
Before you do that, Renee, can I have one more question?
Of course.
Okay, it just seems to me like some of these questions could be answered by meeting with the city of Lawrence, that we have right away on the west side, they could solve sidewalks and redesign the Cellar Street. What would happen if we asked for a continuance and asked for you to meet with the city of Lawrence and talk about Cellar Street and right away and the future of the area? I agree with you that everybody who comes here is going to have the same problem you do. We might as well get it solved. Right now, it'd be a beautiful building, but I think there's some issues that we as a BZA can't deal with, but the city of Lawrence could. Cam Starnes and Scott Salisbury, and they know the plans for the area. Maybe there's some modifications possible to make this thing happen.
So before we vote, Tom, are you saying you would want to see if the board, I would need a motion and a second for us to continue it? And if the petition,
Well, I'd like their reaction. If it's no interest to them, then maybe we don't need to do it. But it just seems like there's another step that needs to happen.
I agree with you.
What do you think, John?
I agree with this one.
John, how do you feel about that and your client?
We are definitely open to considering that, yes.
Okay, so we would need a motion by a board member and a second in order to continue it to the July, what is that date? July 21st meeting, and I would need to know.
Such a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, that's Desmond, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And I need to know with or without notice.
With notice.
Okay. And we'll do a roll call vote for continuing this petition to the July 21st BZA meeting. Becky Lytle,
yay?
Mark Sanders,
Yay.
Courtney Kuna,
Yay.
and Stephen Hall.
Yay.
Okay. And I'm going to assume that Tom Crouch and Desmond Woods are both yays, seeing that you made the motion and the second.
Well, I'll confirm that. Yay.
So this petition is continued to the July 21st meeting with notice. John, you can get in touch with me tomorrow, and I'll get you in touch with the right people to talk about the plan, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, yes, thank you very much.
And with no other
Thank
business,
you.
thank you. With no other business for the board to address,
Be in person next month.
yes, we will be meeting in person next month. As far as everything stands right now, the governor's releasing us effective July 1st. So that meeting would be in person, so everybody knows, at 6 o'clock as usual. And with no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned. Everybody have a great night.
Hey, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You too.